What's up, AP Micro B-Day? Today we are going to be going over exports, imports, and tariffs. First, I'm going to tell you about exports. What is an export? An export is when the domestic supply, it costs less to produce than it does, the world price costs more. So like, for example, say Mizuno golf clubs. To produce Mizuno golf clubs in America it costs 20 bucks, but in Zimbabwe it costs 40 bucks. So then, in foreign trade, we're going to export our Mizuno golf clubs to Zimbabwe for a surplus, for a profit, because we're going to be able to sell it for more and produce it cheaper. And that's what an export is. So let me draw this up to explain it to you. So, already we have an equilibrium price and quantity right here in the American domestic supply. The domestic demand perfectly matches that. So, when the world price then costs more, this is what happens here. So now, the quantity supplied is going to come here. I will show you the board after. And the quantity demanded in America's market is going to be here. So you're asking yourself, oh, okay, Kessler, where's the export? The export is right here. Right? That's where the export is. And in order to remember this, you can remember that quantity supplied, so QS minus QD is equal to export. So the quantity supplied here minus the quantity demanded is your export, which is all this. So let's look at consumer and producer surplus before the export. So originally, none of this over here existed. This line didn't exist, and you had, this line didn't exist, none of this over here existed, and you had producer surplus right here in this triangle, and consumer surplus in this triangle, because remember this line didn't exist. But now, since we have an export, and the producers are benefiting, producers benefit from exports, and consumers do not, this is what happens. You get producer surplus, producer surplus, producer surplus, producer surplus, producer surplus, consumer surplus. So look at that. It just pretty much becomes all producer surplus. You know, the consumers, they still get a little bit of surplus, but they don't want it as much since now it's costing more in the domestic market because they're selling it to foreign markets, and that is exports. So to sum up what Kessler said, this is Billy Baum here. I work for Mizuno company, and I'm just going to show you what an export looks like. So, it costs 20 bucks here. I'm going to sell it for 35 in the foreign market. Here you go, Mr. Ches. Thank you, Billy Baum. This will be very helpful to me. Thank you so much. Now, my people are benefiting because we are getting it for less than the domestic supply here. But are your people hurting? Well, Mr. Ches, the consumers might be hurting a little bit, but us producers, we're feeling mighty fine over here. All right, now that Billy Baum and Mr. Ches have explained to you exports and given you a little visual, I'm going to explain to you why imports happen in foreign trade. So, an import happens when the world price costs less than the domestic equilibrium price. So, let me draw that. I'll show you after. World price. As you can see, the world price is now here. So, what does this do to consumer surplus if we're allowing imports as a nation? If the government is allowing us to import Mizuno golf clubs per se, or anything, they're allowing us to import footballs that are produced cheaper or close. What does that do for consumer and producer surplus? Well, I'll tell you what it does. So, originally, as before, this doesn't exist, neither does this line. You had consumer surplus and producer surplus throughout here. You know, they're equal. It's not visually equal because it's not drawn to scale, but it is equal right now. So what happens when we allow imports? Well, as you can see, we're now able to buy the quantity demanded is here, quantity supplied is here, and the quantity demanded can be met by the new world price. And the quantity supplied with the new world price, it just can't go how high it needs to go for them to be happy, for equilibrium to be met in the domestic market. So what happens is you have consumer surplus, consumer surplus, consumer surplus, consumer surplus, And this small little triangle over here is producer surplus. So when you allow imports as a nation, the quantity demanded can be met by the New World price. We're importing, consumers are super happy, but producers are not as happy. Producers are losing from this. And before I go any further, I just want to say an economical principle is that in trade, the winners' wins outdo the losers' losses. So what that means is even though the producers are losing, the consumers are having more money to spend so they can support other things in the economy. And same goes for if there's an export and the producers have more surplus now. The producers, since they have more money, they can produce more efficiently, and the consumers, even though they can't spend as much now, it still is working out for the best of the economy. We're about to catch Mr. Ches freaking importing to my country. He's gonna sell to my own people for less money, giving them a better deal than I can give him. Who does he think he is? I can't believe the government's allowing this. Hello, American. It costs less for you to buy from me now. Since I'm importing it to your country, it costs less, and you can get the better deal for it. Well, I really appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. I think I'm gonna buy from you. Of course. That son of a... You telling me that I'm working every day and the government's just gonna let this guy come sell to my own freaking country? Like, this is ridiculous. What am I gonna do about this? I'm gonna do something with the government. I'm gonna tell them to do something. Well, Billy Bomb, I'm glad you said something, because the government can and will do something, and what they will do is if imports are absolutely crushing domestic supply, they will place a tariff to try and tax the other country and stop them from importing so much. But what actually happens is you end up hurting the consumers as they pay the burden of the tariff. Bet you didn't know that, did you, Billy Bomb? So let me explain how that happens. So a tariff changes the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied in order to help the producers. So as you can see already from this, the quantity supplied went from here to here, and the quantity demanded went from here to here. And what that is deadweight loss. Alright, they're no longer demanding as much. The market's getting smaller because of this tariff, and the supply has deadweight loss as well because they are doing it for a greater price. They're no longer going to sell down here. They're only going to sell up here in this now smaller triangle for surplus. So what does that do for surpluses? Producer surplus, although the total surplus is going down in general, producer surplus is actually going up, which is good for them, but it really just hurts everybody in the economy, which I guess it'd be good if your job's about to go out, but if not, you're just hurting everybody else. So right now you can see that consumer surplus used to be this entire space down here, and now it is just these three, and producer surplus used to be here, and now it's just here. So is it really that much of a gain? Is it really that worth it? And there's also deadweight loss in the market, which makes sense because tariffs are essentially a tax, and anytime there's a tax, there's deadweight loss because taxes reallocate the way we spend money for scarce resources. So what is this space here, you're asking yourself? That is government revenue from the tariff. So this is what the government is collecting in tax money. And how I had a mess up in my words, so I had to start a new clip, edit the last one. But yeah, that is pretty much the sum of imports with a tariff on it. So what happens in the tariff? There's deadweight loss, the government makes money, the total surplus goes down, it is bad for the economy. The only good thing from this is that you might have saved the business and employees, but if that job wasn't really needed anymore, you're really just hurting the economy in the future, and in a little sense in the present as well. But we do it to make people happy and to win votes, so I guess it works for the best. But consumer surplus drops, producer surplus increases, the government gets some revenue, and there's deadweight loss, and that's really all you need to know for that. I tell you, we really did. We really showed Mr. Ches there, didn't we? Now us domestic suppliers, we're back in business, baby. Just help the economy out. Let's go. What? You're not going to let me sell here anymore? What? Oh, the burden will fall. The burden will fall on the consumers in their own country. So we're still gonna be okay. All right. Well, okay. I'll play along with it. Okay. I'll accept the tariff. I'll pay the tariff. Right. Man, Billy Baum. He really just messed all that up. Us consumers, we were getting it for less, and now the only people who feel better are the producers, and they don't even feel that much better. So, and we have to pay the tax. So I hope you're happy, Billy Baum. This is why I hate tariffs. The government should just stay out of it always. God, so dumb. Well, happy Micro B-Day. I hope you learned something, and I hope you always remember, the government always fails. West Palm pride till we die.